How do we keep this little innocent child here, timid and fearful, from falling into this pattern? We identify the vulnerability at whatever place we find it. And we do anything and everything we can as a community to keep that from being exploited. Because here's the false narrative. We think sex trafficking is about a creepy vehicle and abduction. That's not sex trafficking. It's partly why this room's not packed full tonight. Because, I mean, we're in Eldon, Missouri. I mean, come on, it's kind of like living out in Mayberry. This is not an issue. Like, seriously, come on. What we need to understand in our lane, what we're working on in our lane, to end it before it starts. You see, our heart is I never want a law enforcement officer to ever have to encounter your kid to help them. I never want a sexual assault nurse examiner to have to examine the kids that you care about. I never want them to have to go to a home and counseling to attempt to restore them. I'm thankful for all those people who do that work, but our lane is to end it before it ever starts. And so it's not about a creepy vehicle and abduction. What we need to understand, it's all about life online and seduction. And I'm here to tell you there's three kinds of people, perverts, predators, and pimps, who are preying on our kids, and they are seducing them in insane ways. So within the context of the three words, exploitation and vulnerability, I need you to realize there's always the societal, environmental, individual risk factor. What that means is, it doesn't matter if you're in the right zip code where we think sex trafficking happens, or if you live close to the proper freeway where we think sex trafficking is more vulnerable. The highway you need to worry about is what's happening online. There's been a 15,555% increase in online child sexual abuse material from 2004 to 2019. That's a staggering statistic. And the reality is this. They're always focused on our kids. It doesn't matter if they're a pervert or a predator or an actual pimp. They're focused on our kids. And what they do is they take innocent-looking symbols and apply them to absolute depravity. A couple of weeks ago, I was driving to Queen City, Missouri to do presentations there. And I was driving on the freeway, and I passed a semi-truck. And on the front of the semi-truck, he had several pedo bears attached to his bumper, advertising he is a pedophile and a hobbyist. See, they're very blatant in their depravity. And one of the things that we need to understand was I would never let this in my home. But the challenge is this, is if we don't pay attention to what our kids are doing online, or if we don't know how to pay attention to what our kids are doing online, or if we are convinced this could never happen to my kid or the kids I care about, for whatever reason we conjure up, then guess what? We're already behind the battle. So the big window of clarity tells us this. A lot of times in human trafficking training, we make a mistake and we jump straight to the grooming process. Well, guess what? There's not a criminal out there that's going to rob your neighborhood until they've cased it first. We're going to see who's got the garage door open, who's got the back porch lights on, who left the screen door open. Then we'll come rob. It's the same thing with your kids. The people who are preying on our kids online, they are going to case them first. Not a one of you was able to enter this room without going through those doors, and those doors had a case on. There's a boundary. These people are looking for the boundary that your kid may or may not be willing to cross. Once they discover that, then we step into the grooming process where, guess what? Exploitation is normalized. And that can take 3 years like it did for my friend who you saw in the video, or it can take moments. As happened with a friend of mine out of Kansas City area in June of last year, a young teenage girl who only took 3 days, and she willingly walked out of the house because of the seduction that she went through online, and she willingly got into a pickup truck, and she willingly drove away from the home and ended up in Denver. It's still not about abduction. It's putting law enforcement in incredibly difficult positions because the general public says, well, it's an abduction. You've got to go do something. And by law, these kids are walking away on their own because of seduction. So if we want to end it before it starts, we've got to identify in these places. So let's talk about kids who are really vulnerable. Are kids in foster care more vulnerable than those? Absolutely. Kids on the street, kids in broken homes, kids couch surfing, all these other situations, kids from difficult positions. Remember, it's about the three words, exploitation of vulnerabilities. All these things raise the vulnerabilities in kids. But you need to understand something. For even these kids, it's always still happening online. You want to know why? Because typically we as adults are doing this, and we're like, we're not going to intervene in their online life for whatever reason. And so if we're really going to process this properly, we have to have understanding that the years 2021 and 22 have been the worst years ever for the online enticement of kids. And the deep dive of the data indicates this, and I need you to hear me carefully. There's been a threefold increase in self-generated images by children ages 7 to 10. Put that in plain English. Threefold increase in kids using devices, taking their clothes off, taking naked pictures, and sending them. So when we come into public school settings, and there's a survey, we give kids 6th grade to 12th grade. And it's measuring their vulnerability. The numbers are staggering. How at younger and younger ages, kids are saying, I have met a complete stranger in person. I first met online, and I am taking hot pics of myself and sharing them. And see, in our lane to end it before it starts, these are the entryways that perverts, predators, and pimps love, because it makes it that much easier for us to groom and case our kids.